Hello and welcome to Matching Mom Genes, where identical twins explore divergent paths of motherhood born from the same roots. Join us as we navigate this crazy world of parenting, proving that even with identical DNA, our journeys are still unique. Get ready for laughs, insights, and a double dose of maternal mayhem. Hi.
Hi. How are you?
I'm persona non grata at my house right now. Because so there's a birthday boy coming up in a couple of days. Someone is turning
Yes.
7, and we're really leaning into the vibes, and I love that. I love some party vibes. What I don't love is that all he wants to do is go play outside, and it's 99 degrees outside. Like,
Ooh.
not even joking, it was literally 99 degrees at some point yesterday. And I was like, "I'm so sorry, buddy. Like, I can let you outside for about 20 minutes at a time, and
Right.
then you
And
come in
then
and cool down."
I have
And just
concerns for your skin,
yeah,
your heart, your lungs, and your
he
brain.
was like, well, and also, like, as you get older, your body can regulate temperature a little bit better. So you're ahead of the 3-year-old who is the size of an 18-month-old and can't regulate his body worth anything. And so I'm like, I can't let
Right.
you,
Like
it's
we
like a
as a
health thing.
family need to be in the same place because I
Exactly.
only have one set of eyeballs. So
Yes.
maybe we could be together where
And,
there's air conditioning. The fact that you have
and
air
I,
conditioning is enough because I don't.
yeah, you don't have any air conditioning.
I'm looking
Well,
at this
it was,
thermostat right here. This thermometer right here.
oh,
And it
wow.
says
In your house.
80 degrees, 50% humidity in my house right now.
Fahrenheit, right?
It is
Is that 80 degrees Fahrenheit?
9:09 p.m. Yeah, that's Fahrenheit. Oh
Okay.
God, 80 degrees
80 degrees Celsius is
Celsius.
dying.
I'm dead.
No, I just checking. Sometimes you gotta check your sources.
It's true.
No, what's funny is that it was going well. Like we'd established the boundary, we'd established the expectation. We were doing great. And then I said, "I'm sorry, it's just too hot right now. We'll wait until a little bit later, and then we will go out when it's a little bit later. But like right now at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, like too hot, too hot."
Yeah.
And he looked at me and goes, "Can you just make it stop being hot already?"
Ooh, see, climate
And I
scientists
was
tried
like,
that.
I looked at him because this was a true moment of frustration. I mean, like,
Right.
homeboy
Like, I mean,
dysregulated,
this is
upset.
coming from a place of honesty.
Yes. And I was like, I would love to do that for you. Like, I decided to just kind of lean into, like, that would be amazing. However, just like I can't control when it rains or storms, I cannot make our yard less hot. And he was like, "But you can make the house less hot." And I was like, houses have walls.
Yeah.
I was like,
Now
I can see where you're
let's
going with
call
this.
Auntie Shelby and talk about steady state closed systems and
Exactly.
open um and open systems in a state of flux. Let's just
But
kind of we're just going to just jump right in to University Physics 2 here.
but then there was kind of this moment of like, he's still really pissed off. And I was like, you know what? It's totally okay if you need someone to be mad at. You can absolutely be mad at me that I cannot change the weather. Go for
Yeah.
it. Because I can see that you are so mad about this.
I find
And like, oh, go ahead.
for my daughter, who's 2.5 now officially. We had her half birthday this last week.
Officially. Yeah, I feel like
But
we might not have any listeners left after our 4th of July skip into the chaos episode that was last week. Because I don't know if you remember recording that episode,
it
but
happens.
Travis
It
got on
happens
stage
a
with
lot
Taylor and everything exploded
in the middle of the episode. And I was just
in
like, I
the
can't talk
middle.
to you anymore about this. I have things I need to do.
We have to go. It was like
I have to
airplane
go
arms.
watch TikToks of this from every angle, okay?
We did get every angle. It was pretty impressive.
Yes. And even got his own we're not talking about this anymore. Anyway, I
Valid.
find that for my daughter who's 2.5, heat can be really, really dysregulating for her. Something that she normally tolerates very, very, very well, she has no tolerance for when it's hot.
Well, and that's why
And
the phrase hotheads exists. Like,
Fair.
there's something to be said for that. Like, your blood is boiling, you're a hothead, everything's dying because your body is like, get me out of here right now. You need to be mad so you can run away? Awesome. You need to be sad so you can run away? Let's do it. Like, whatever you need to
Let's
get
get
us
out
out
of
of this
here.
situation.
That's kind of funny to think about it that way. I never thought about it that way.
Yeah.
But
So,
yeah, and so I just feel really bad because it's like at that point, dude just wants to play.
yeah. And like, we went to the library, we went to story time, but like, eventually, story time ends and it's lunchtime and
And it's
everyone's
only been
hungry.
an hour.
You're also hungry. Well, it was 2 hours today, which was very exciting.
Because it's
And we
so
did
hot.
wilderness survival training, and the librarian noticed that we were out for my son's procedures this last month, and because of that, um she had set aside some things for him and his brother to like do their own wilderness survival bag because she kind of has like an estimate of how many kids usually come. And then she adds to that, like kind of like excess just in case. And so she was like, I set them aside some things. And so they have
That
like
is so
butterfly
kind.
nets and sunglasses and a pair of little foldable binoculars. Like, I mean, just going hard in the paint. It's really exciting.
I mean, librarians really are just like
Oh yeah.
the cream of the crop.
Yeah. Only the best people are librarians in my opinion. If I ever meet a grouchy librarian, I might be nervous. I might be nervous
Which it
about what she
exists, but
knows.
also at this point, if I met a really, really grouchy librarian, I feel like I would probably have to check myself. I'm like, okay, I'm sorry, but what have I done to offend you?
Yeah,
Because
that's exactly
like
right.
I feel like I've got
What's
to be in
going
the wrong
on?
here. Like, let me
Because you
know.
just go with a lot of things. In
What would
Nashville,
you like for me to do to make your day better? Thank you.
in Nashville, there was an initiative to teach all of the librarians in their massive, massive public library system to use like Narcan because they had dealt with so many
The
like
drug thing?
overdoses. Yeah. They
Oh,
had dealt with so many overdoses because it's a public place and in the heat you can get in there for cool and things like that. So they just were training all of the librarians to be like first responders. And I was just like, this is a good idea, but also not at all what librarians learn in school. Like, this is outside
what?
your scope of practice.
I can't imagine I think feel like the hardest part of being a librarian is dealing with people. And so
In
like
general.
I don't feel
Period.
like we need to be leaning into that
That's exactly. I was
anymore.
like, a great idea.
Like taking the worst
Also
part of my
probably
job and expanding it and making it like life or death.
exactly. Exactly. So
That's
I
interesting.
that's always stuck with me is that like there's all these initiatives and I know of several people in different states who have also heard of those same initiatives. So I don't know where it stands now in Nashville. I don't know if it finished or whatever, but always a fascinating thought of like here's how to be a children's librarian and also here's how to administer Narcan, which isn't super hard. It's like a nose spray, but still it's pretty stressful.
It's
Like,
interesting that it's a nose spray.
yeah, a lot of
That's not
times
where I
that's how
thought you
it's
were going with
administered.
this episode.
No, no, we're talking about something completely different. And actually, you're going to be educating me.
A little bit. A little bit. I feel like it's going to
Which
have to be more of a discussion than education because I don't consider myself an expert on this. I just
I
want to
mean,
talk more about it because I want to learn more about it.
yeah, me too. I have a lot of questions, and when you showed me the definition, all of my questions amplified. So to get into it, you and I today decided
We're talking
that we
about this
want to.
buzzword Montessori.
Yes, the deep dive culture of Montessori versus like the actual learning method, I think, as well.
Yeah,
Because there
yeah,
is this
because
like
even
big,
here in
broad concept.
Germany, Maria Montessori is like revered. But yet, there aren't really like you don't see like the Montessori schools.
Yeah.
And my daughter's kindergarten, um, does not. They use a different researcher that they balance their framework on.
Yeah.
But if you walk down the hallways, or in our case, the mini staircases, um, there are like those book fair posters
Yeah.
with
Yeah. I know
like
exactly what you're talking about.
inspirational
Scholastic Book
things
Fair
in them.
posters.
But they'll be like a Maria Montessori quote in German, of course,
Nice.
like
Very
that it's been
exciting.
translated. And some of them are like really interesting because obviously I'm learning German, so I'm like, I don't know that word, let's look it up. Or I know that word, but I don't know why it would be saying that. And so I'm always taking pictures of things in the Kita to translate. Sometimes it's like the lunch menu, like I did today.
Fair. That's valid.
Sometimes it's like the sign that they put up today that was like, hey, before summer break next week, make sure you take all of your kids' stuff home from their cubbies because we will be deep cleaning the cubbies. And I'm like, I didn't know what the word for cubby was. It's
Yeah.
compartment. It's the German word for compartment,
Okay.
but
That's
still.
valid. I guess we could have
Um,
guessed that one. Cubby is not a universal term.
right, right. But it said like, like clean out your child's whatever, and come to find out that's the German word for compartment. But anyway, so I'm always translating things. And so I got curious and translated some of the Maria Montessori quotes, and I'm like looking into it. I'm like, this is I like it. It does seem profound. And I had been given last summer, and I read some of it, the Montessori Toddler,
Yes, which is like her
which
book,
is
like her
a
manual.
really, really good book. And I still have it, and some of it's highlighted, and I have followed some of it, like the potty training stuff, and like but a lot of it is like child led and developmentally appropriate and
Yeah.
overlaps a lot with a lot of other parenting books. And so I
Yeah.
just find it very, very, very interesting. So, first, oh, ye child educator and psychologist
Great.
background, I'm going to read the definition from Google. And then we can
Excellent.
talk more
Source
about
cited.
this.
We're good.
The source is from Montessori nw.org. So it's a .org. And so I know sometimes people in different countries have a problem with not checking their sources online for material. ORG used to be widely renowned as a
Organization.
credible source.
Yeah, our teachers used to say,
So,
it can't be a .com. It can be a .org, a .net, or a .gov, or in
right, right.
.edu.
I don't know who we trust nowadays.
No
But
clue. Not a
let's
clue.
just fall back on the .org just in case. So it says Montessori is a method of education that is based on self-directed activity, hands-on learning, and collaborative play. In a Montessori classroom, children make creative choices in their learning, while the classroom and the highly trained teacher offer age-appropriate activities to guide the process. And I'm like, that does kind of seem like what my daughter does at kindergarten.
Yes. What's interesting is when I hear that, I immediately think of two things. One, it is established as a scientifically evidence based thing that children learn best through play. Like, children need to be told something somewhere between like 40 and 60 or even more, maybe, um, times. But if you can teach it to them through play, it doesn't have to be repeated nearly that much. So if you teach skills that you want them to learn through play, their brains actually absorb it faster. So I love that. And I love that that's basically what they're saying this is. But the second thing that immediately comes to mind is like, but what about the wooden blocks? Because all of these really aesthetic Montessori classrooms don't actually feel that child led and that like exploration based. Like, you see all these like pictures of like a perfectly curated situation.
Right.
And I'm thinking Montessori is more like water games outside to learn about cooling off. Like, like I don't really know. Like, I mean, it almost makes me think of like my youngest's first experience with like a Play-Doh substance was actually just gluten-free dough, because Play-Doh, the actual brand, not to put them on blast, has wheat in it, and he was severely allergic to wheat. And so one of the very first things they told us was like, no Play-Doh. As he gets older, no Play-Doh. And so wanting him to kind of have the motor
What
skills and
about
all of that,
Italian Play-Doh?
I don't know. Everything in Europe is like either much healthier or also more gluten. There's no middle
Right,
ground.
right.
They
It's
seem to
difficult
really
to
like
have
their
allergies
gluten.
here. Well, they just
But
don't have people with food allergies very often, so
yeah. And so that's something that makes me think of like Montessori-esque is like
yeah.
learning while you're like rolling a cookie dough versus like sitting down. I don't know. Like how
I
do
don't know.
you
It's
what's the
confusing.
opposite of Montessori?
What is the opposite of Montessori? That's a good question. Well, and like
Because
what piqued my interest was because like the book has like lots and lots and lots of ideas of activities for like how you can teach things. Like one of the ones I remember one, I told you I couldn't remember too much of the book, but I do remember one. One of the things was to get a basket and go around your house and make a discovery basket with the random items that you find and put them together in the basket for your child to explore them and how they're used out of context. And you can start as young as
interesting.
like 8 months old. Like basically as soon as they can like sit up by themselves or crawl or whatever. Like don't put the hairbrush in the bathroom and tell them that a hairbrush is for a bathroom. Leave it out and let them see what they might use it for. And I was like,
Hmm.
ooh, voodoo.
I was about to say that makes me think of like the TikTok trend that happened for a while where you like hand your kid your deodorant and see if they know where it's supposed to go. Like
I mean,
that's pretty
don't get me
accurate.
wrong. Don't get me wrong. I think that discovery is one of the greatest forms of play. But I also remember going, that's kind of weird. I feel like
It's a little odd.
I feel like there might be better uses of my time. And so I'm just like, don't know. But then I see these quotes, and when I like look them up and translate them, it's like Dr. Maria Montessori. The greatest gifts we can give our children are the roots of responsibility and the wings of independence. I'm like,
Ooh, we
yes,
really like
yes,
that.
that's
Yeah, roots
great.
and wings. That must be where that
Yeah,
came from actually.
it
I've heard that
probably
before.
is. And there's like just so many different things. And so yes, that and actually I'm googling right now. I just found the exact poster, but in English. Okay, one of them says, "Do not tell them how to do it. Show them how to do it, and then do not say a word. If you tell your child to do something, they will watch your lips move. If you show them how to do something, they will want to do it themselves." And this is like
Ooh.
a poster on the wall
It's a little
at my
wordy, but I
child's
like it.
kindergarten. It's very long, especially when you put
It's
it in German words.
a very long poster. Much better than hanging there with the little cat off the tree. Um but like okay, again, really like this idea, but this is not what I would have thought Montessori is as
Based
it's
on
presented to
TikTok
like
and Instagram?
American mothers. Well,
Yeah,
like there's the whole conversation of like what daycare and preschool do you choose? And they all cost $80,000. And so like a lot of people are like, well, if you're going to pay that much, you should do a Montessori school. And it's like,
right,
what's different about a regular daycare and a regular or I guess okay, let's say an ethical medium level daycare because there are some
right.
some pretty rough
With
situations.
engaged, like a daycare with plastic toys, but an engaged teacher. What's the difference?
Exactly. And like why in America do we discuss Montessori specifically in the context of wooden toys? Like I have questions. If you
Well,
Google image like
that's
Montessori,
aesthetics, I think.
I know, but if you Google it, it's all wooden. Wooden coin box, wooden blocks,
I think that's
wooden
just because
tray
like
with
those are the
sand.
original toys,
Maybe like you
and
just
so
go back to
it's
your roots and
plastic.
touch trees kind of situation.
Touch grass.
Touch grass. Please go
But
touch
then there's
grass.
like this whole thing here in Germany where children go, and I seriously considered it for a while, but I don't know. a little bit. Occasionally, my postpartum anxiety plays whack-a-mole. So you think it's dormant, and they'll just be like, "No." And I don't know if it's motherly instincts at this point or just postpartum anxiety. But my
The answer
husband was
is
really
yes.
interested. my my husband was really interested in this concept that's very, very, very common here, called a forest preschool.
Oh.
Just sit with that for a second. Forest preschool.
Knowing what I've learned in the last year from you about German culture, I have fears.
They you just take your child to the designated spot in the woods and they just go. They have a picnic lunch and they're just outside for like 7 hours. And this is like the thing. And they wear like full like rain suits, look like
But
beekeepers. And they just
like,
stomp through puddles and explore and do all the things and sing all the songs outside. And
hmm.
like, I don't know what they do. I don't know enough about it because again, whack a mole. Nope. That's what happened in my brain.
My first thought is your child gets a sunburn if the sun looks at her from behind a
Well,
cloud.
but they're in like beekeeping suits. There's no
So
skin
they're
exposed.
always in it? So there's
Oh
no
yeah,
touching
basically.
grass, even though you're in the
I mean,
grass.
their little hands are
Oh, that's cute.
their
Okay.
little
Only touch
faces.
grass. Exclusively touch grass, but nothing else with your body. Don't touch the air. Don't touch any bugs. Don't touch any trees. Here's your
And then
hands.
we've
Use
got
the
like,
grass.
and then I
Wow.
think we landed in the happy middle because like it is quite warm in Europe right now, and um, my daughter's Kita is still taking them outside, especially in the mornings. And so it'll be like 85 degrees, and I'm like, well, how do we handle this? And they're like, well, we put sunscreen on all the children, and we expect you
Good.
to have put
Love that.
sunscreen on all the children in the morning as well. And I'm like, yes, I do. And they're like, yeah. And then we go outside and we hose them all down with the water.
That's an unexpected step.
And then we have some kiddie pools. We have a couple splash
Wait,
pads, and they just they just run around screaming wet
I have
for a couple
I have
hours,
a
like
follow-up question.
water day at church camp.
Is the water hosing before or at the beginning or at the end? Because I would have thought like, hey, to cool them down, we hose them like in the middle or the end. But is this like a everybody line up
I
situation?
know I haven't witnessed it. I haven't witnessed. I have picked up a like dripping wet child before. You really
Love
got to
that.
time your pickup either before the water starts in the afternoon or well into the water so
Fair.
that it's not recently wet.
Can you
Um,
imagine that many wet sobbing toddlers just running around?
just running around. I
That's
I have
kind
seen
of
the
might
pile
be
of
my nightmare.
shoes because most of them don't want their shoes to get wet because those are their shoes. So they just like pile their shoes up in the corner after the concrete gets cold enough that they can like run around on it.
Oh wow.
It's interesting. It's interesting. But I'm
That
like I'm like it's
that's a
kind of like a
vibe.
forest preschool only
It's a
it's
water preschool.
not.
It's a
Yeah.
sprinkler
So
preschool.
really really interesting this whole concept. And so I'm like which one is more Montessori? I don't know.
Well, and I guess my follow-up is like what is your does is like so different styles of parenting. People get into like attachment parenting, gentle parenting, not gentle parenting, which is apparently like capital N, capital G, not gentle parenting. Which I can't figure out what that's supposed to be. But like people identify as these like forms of parent and the type of parenting they practice. But I think it's really interesting because I've never met anyone who's like, I am this type of parent, and this is the only type of parenting my child ever receives because consistency is really hard. And
Can we go
so,
with not failing at this today parenting?
well, I
That is
go
my
with
that's my preferred method.
the
Not gonna fail at this today parenting. Might fail
one that
tomorrow.
they
Not
might fail
today.
tomorrow. I guess
I got
my
enough
goal
I have enough gas in the tank to get to bedtime. That's where I'm at.
There we go.
Don't
My
know about
goal, like
tomorrow.
when I set up like a new parenting class and I'm meeting a family for the first time, like I usually try to push aside those really big words and go for like a regulated parent. Like if you're a regulated parent, you can actually make intentional decisions, which
Fair.
then you can choose what type of parent you want to be. But
Okay.
like my question about Montessori is like, is it a learning procedure for like framework and curriculum building, or is it a style of parenting? And if it's a style of parenting, are there like flow charts for what you're supposed to do? Or is it more like establishing goals?
No.
Because, like,
No, because that's what the whole book is about. Like that's why I think I like originally picked up the book thinking that it was going to help like lead me down again postpartum anxiety. Okay, like was gonna like lead me down the right path so I didn't have to course correct later. It's like what can we do now while we're wearing diapers that will make potty training easier? Like these kinds of thoughts. Like how can I encourage
yeah.
creativity now before she gets screen time to keep the screen time from combating her creativity? Like you read all these studies about all this stuff, and so it's like
How do I
how
set
can I do
myself up
these
for
things?
success?
Yeah, exactly. But the book is so much more than that. It's about like your child might be interested in this. This is how this is blah blah blah. Like develop noticing what's developmentally appropriate. Maybe an idea here if this is developmentally appropriate. Like, but it's not like here's how to make your
To do
child a
it.
good adult. It's just not. And so maybe that's why some people cling to the rigidity of, well, I can't have a plastic toy and we will have these blocks and I need a rainbow thing. And and it's all
So
going to be
real.
okay. Like maybe that's why parents and other moms are like self-imposing these rules because
Yeah,
I
I
mean
do think
let's look back at this definition. This is oh, not on my phone anymore because okay, there you go. Self directed activity, hands on learning, and collaborative play.
so. None
Every
of those things
child
are
that your
adult.
child, well, even just looking at like collaborative play, I
Yeah.
send a child to kindergarten every morning having no control over which kids are going to show up that day, no control over how their parents are parenting. I don't even know which language all of them speak at home.
That's fair.
Like, I don't.
I
It's an
think,
international school. So there's not really much a parent can do in this case when it comes to
yeah. And I
true
think that's what it
Montessori.
is. I feel like we impose, especially in the parenting world, but also like kind of in like the mental health world, is like if something feels overwhelming and vague, it's uncertain and unstable. And so you're like very quickly like, how do I parse this down into my everyday life kind of situation? And I think that that is where a lot of people kind of paint themselves into a corner, into the extent of like, I can't allow my child to experience these things because I don't know how it's going to impact them. But I think it's really interesting that that definition, because I just keep coming back to the fact that like I've literally looked at all these things. I haven't read the book, but I've looked at all these different options and I've never heard that definition of Montessori.
Oh, really?
And like I've only ever heard like learn through play or like learn in
Okay.
a non-traditional setting. And
Well,
like
I
you
mean,
can
I
read about the schools. Sorry, go ahead.
really, really liked the um there's another definition that I really liked, but I liked this one because it seemed to be
It's
the
very
most broad.
concise, and I like that
Yeah.
I feel like it's broad, but it's concise, which is very nice. But I
For
also think,
me,
like,
what
as a
I
parent. Oh, sorry.
for me what I took from the book was self-directed, like your child is going to learn something when they're like ready and showing signs to learn something. And so that's been really, really important to us. Like my daughter was interested in learning how to use the toilet. And so she learned how to use it. But then she got frustrated by the whole concept. And so even though she now still regularly uses the toilet, she also still wears diapers at times. And so
Yeah.
she was ready to learn, but maybe she wasn't ready to say goodbye to the diapers. And
Yeah,
so
she wasn't ready.
like just having an expert in a book say, like, your child leads these things and that's okay, really helped. Again, postpartum anxiety. And then, like, there are some, like, really, really nice thoughts that you just, I don't feel like I'm not a super motherly inclined person. Like, I never was like the mom of the friend group or anything. And so, like, you just kind of don't know what your options are. And
Yeah.
one of the things that it recommended, besides the weird basket thing, was like taking time on like a nice day to do like a child led walk.
Yeah.
Like, follow your child where they go. It's not weird to follow your child.
See what the no.
You don't have to put a weird pressure on it. That's like, go show, let's, you and mama, let's go show something, let's go find something really cool or anything like that. Just like,
Show me what you're
say
interested
you're
in,
gonna walk.
toddler.
Start in the yeah. I mean, sometimes it kind of feels like that. Sometimes it feels like if you get all this outside pressure that's like, know your child's interest, and you're like, okay, but
Yeah.
like, if I sit down
How?
and ask her what she's drawing, she's going to, like, maybe not tell me, or
That reminds me of
she's
a
going to be
video
like, what do you
too.
see? You know what I mean? And so it's like, it was nice that the book talked about, like, your child does have interest, and if your child doesn't have interest, they will soon. Like, even if you start a walk and your child's not interested in a walk, say, you're the adult, you set the boundary. We're going to go outside for a few minutes. I'd like to go down here to check the mail. We can also do whatever you want to do. So, like, go. And if they're not interested in the trees or whatever, they might find some ants to watch for a little bit and just chill out and watch the ants.
Or they may turn around and tell you like, "No, I need to go inside and line up all the cars in a line."
Yeah.
Because like that's a really big option as well
And
in my house.
then
And it's like I was
you get
very
to hear
serious
what's
about
going
that.
on in their brain.
Yeah. I love that practical side of things and like the actual like paring down of it because you said something really interesting which is like you parents don't know how to ask their children who they are. Like, you
Right.
don't sit down and say I mean, like, you can't do that with most college students and say, like, "Hi, tell me what your top 5 interests are and commit to those as an answer right now." Like, that's not gonna work. I mean, even people panic when they say I will never forget, my husband was filling out some sort of questionnaire for being a soccer coach, and they were like, "What are your hobbies?" And he was like, "My hobbies?" I mean, it caused such severe stress. And I was like, I was listing things off. I was like, honey, these are all hobbies. And he was like, no, that's just stuff I like to do. It's
What's one
like,
of the most dreaded
that's it.
interview questions? What is the number one interview prep question that they tell you should always have an answer for before you go to the interview? Tell me about yourself.
Yeah.
If
Yeah.
you sit down in a job interview, the first thing they're going to do is say, okay, well, tell us about yourself.
Yeah. It's the worst.
And people
They're testing to
freeze.
see if you're a toddler.
And people freeze. And so, like, I just really appreciated, I guess, because you hear all about this, like, you need to do developmentally appropriate stuff or whatever. But, like, I appreciated that in the book and in some of these quotes and stuff, I see a little bit more structure of, like,
Yeah.
how and why. How and why. Like, even there's a part of the book, and I know I'm talking too much about this book. There's so many different things,
No,
but this
I
is, like,
appreciate
the
it.
book.
Yeah,
And
it's written by
there's a
her,
part where
right?
they talk about these, like, I'm gonna say this wrong. Sensitive ages. Maybe it's a sensitive age
Yeah, that
where
sounds
it's
right.
like,
We talk about
maybe
like
it's not.
sensitive things when your brain is more primed to learn things.
Yes.
So like
Yes.
language is literally from like 6 months on, like you're learning language all the way through, but
Well,
like
but it
emotion
cuts off at like
regulation,
3 so that your brain can
yes.
start, like, reading.
Yeah.
And so it's like these there's these big windows, and it talks about, like, there's one for potty training. Guess what? We missed it. It closed last month.
Well, it's 20 to 30. Oh yeah, you're right. You're past 30 months
It closed last month. You know what I mean? And so it's like, but it talks about these windows, but then it also talks about, like,
if you miss the window.
language or whatever, or, like, that's just the time you're more sensitive. That doesn't mean, I mean, like, anyone who's ever learned a second language, like I'm learning German right now, knows that I didn't have to learn that language before I was 3 to enjoy learning it again. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well,
So
and
I really
that
appreciate that side of it.
that automatically kind of brings to mind the idea of like what we try to tell parents about neurodivergency, and not just like autism, but like ADHD and all of these different types of thinking and brain working type things, because like you may have different sensitive areas. Like there are kids, like every brain is kind of different. And so like it's probably really, I wish we talked to parents more about those sensitive times, and like we
You
talk
mean
about
you think
developmental
we should
milestones.
educate our parents? We should
As a
educate
parent
parents before
educator,
we
it's
just keep
really
them alive? Because
as a parent educator, it's important
all
to
I'm
me.
getting educated about as a mother is like recalls and how not to kill my child.
Yeah, yeah, and people are still failing at that. Like the news is rough. People are
That's
still not
true.
doing great
That's
at that.
true.
But
And but nobody talks to you really about, like, you're on your own to find the information out there about like how your child is going to learn or how your child should learn, because everybody knows how we learned. Like, you know how you learned something. But is there a better way? Is there an easier way? Like, you know what I mean? And so it's like it's so interesting, and I'm at least happy. This is going to sound, let me try to iron this out. But like, I'm at least happy to hear, as I dig further into it, that a buzzword name, if you actually dig into it, is fairly legit.
yeah, I like that part. And
You
I think
know?
that's where I was coming from when I said I'd never heard that definition, because basically you kind of hear this broad stroke of like you learn by playing. They play all the time. There's not sitting in desks, and it's like, yes, those are great things. But I love the idea of like communicating to parents like you need to get to know your tiny human as a tiny human. And like that
Right.
is something that like in parent education settings, like speaking with my peers and my colleagues, it's shocking the number of people you say that to, and they're like, no, they're a child. And it's like, a child is a human. Like
Here's
zooming out a
a
little bit, they're humans. And so get to know them as a human, just like you would other humans. But it is, we forget it because it's almost kind of like a pet. Like you got to keep it alive.
right, right. Well, so
Tamaguchi.
because I'm
Tamagotchi.
googling this now from
Sorry, go ahead.
Europe, I'm seeing some European schools on my Google results, and one of the
Nice.
ones at a Montessori school in Spain says Montessori is a scientifically based education approach that emphasizes independence, freedom within limits, and respect for a child's natural, psychological, physical, and social development. And I'm like, that's even a different definition.
Yeah. And I like that one a lot, though, because to me, that is what parents should be doing. Like that's what the first 5 years of your life should be. If you're not in like a like if you're not in daycare, or like whoever's with your kid during the day. So like if it's you, if it's daycare, if it's preschool, like whatever. Like those are the type of things your child should be experiencing, is like learning how to be independent, learning how to be a human, learning how to be in society, and like doing all of those things in a safe and fun way. And it's like that's what you wish for every child, but it's
Right.
cool to hear it articulated. Like, hey, this is what we do. Because like we said, there's such this weird broad of like daycare and preschool like quality control almost.
Right, right.
And
It's all about just keeping them alive,
it's just
is the
keeping them alive.
barest minimum.
It's not capitalizing on this incredible early intervention. And I know people have been screaming about this for like years and years, decades and decades. But like early intervention matters. Like if you can intervene with a child and a learning disability, a physical disability, a neurodivergency, anything like that, speech and language development, any of that, the earlier you get to them, the higher your success rate of improving their life quality. And
Okay.
so like there is this very frustrating concept, and there's some really great programs in Tennessee right now that I've been speaking with that are like, bring your kid in for this random play date and we will look at them and make sure that we direct you to whoever,
Hey,
because not
that's
all
directed
parents.
right at us postpartum anxiety moms. I think maybe
Exactly.
her left hand doesn't work as well as her right hand. Would somebody just look at her, please? Thanks.
Yeah, and, like, you're supposed to have a family doctor who can do those things for you, and that's kind of the traditional role, and when we talk about a village or, like, older sisters or mothers or cousins who are parents, and they can look at it and go, That's fine." They do that. They all do that. It makes me think of, like, the Bluey episode Baby Race, where she's like, some babies just bum shuffle. Like, some babies just crawl backwards. Like, the doctor's a little dismissive, and you end up seeing, like, another mom come up to Bluey's mom and be like, "Hey, this is super hard and you're not doing anything wrong. It's
Oh,
just different people are different people, and your tiny human is a different tiny human." And I think that, like, we don't have that support. So it's really cool to see that in, like, a, I guess, popular way, but I still have a lot of questions about
about
the
how it's
aesthetic
become what it
version.
is.
Well, I guess my thing is, like, if the people who say that they're doing, like, the aesthetic version of Montessori, are they actually still providing the basis of Montessori for their kids? And of course, we don't know that. We have no way
We
of
have no
knowing
way
that.
of we have no way of
But, like,
knowing if some of the gentle parenting educators on TikTok actually lost it on their kid last weekend. We don't know.
well, I'll tell you, every gentle parent loses it on their kid every so often.
Well, but you know what I mean? Like, we just have no idea
Yeah, we
what's
don't know
coming.
what's being portrayed.
And so I do think that there's a lot of capitalism mixed up in American Montessori, especially because um like Dr. Montessori in the book they talk about how it was originally developed so that education and independence could be like brought to every child, not just a child with
Yes.
access to special schools. And so
Yes.
it was never meant to be like the rich influencers kids.
Yeah, the
And
cream of the
so
crop.
but
It
that but
doesn't make
that's
any
also the
sense.
thing too is like we don't know how
Mhm.
every daycare is approaching it. We don't know, like, I mean, even like you don't have to have the wooden blocks, you don't have to have the rainbow.
Yeah,
You
like,
just
you
have
could
to
have
have like
a
the engaged teacher. And the one of the things they do is, in the book talks about like respecting the child and the child's interest in things. And so like respecting, like if your child is like super focused on something, waiting for like a natural pause before things get interrupted and happen. And sometimes that's going to happen and sometimes it's not,
yeah. It
but
makes me
if you
think
as a
of
parent want to try to follow it, then okay, when you're, like tonight it was dinner time and I had made all the plates and my husband was helping me get the table set. And usually my daughter is a part of that. But tonight she was trying to finish something she was doing outside. And my husband was like, she needs to get in here. And he's like calling for her. And I was like, just give her like 5 minutes. So he was like, 5 more minutes. And she's like, I'm almost done. And we hear this like little bitty voice, like, I'm almost done. And I'm like, she's obviously trying to finish something. Like, she's got a
yeah.
task. It doesn't
It's
look
not a
like anything to us.
disobedience.
Like,
Yeah, it's not
but it doesn't
disobedience, it's
look like
focus.
she's like pulling petals off of my rose bush meticulously and then like putting them in this puddle she had found where she had also put some grape leaves and like and so I'm like, I don't know, she's like she's going for a certain vibe, or she's trying to cover up all the water, or she's trying to fill in the hole. I don't know what she's doing because I'm not in her head. But
Yeah.
he gave her 5 minutes and then he reminded her at the 2 minute mark and she came right in.
Wow.
And so it was like and no fuss, no fight, no nothing. And she was like, I'm actually done now. Actually is her new favorite word. It's adorable. I wish I could get a recording of her saying actually. And she uses it in random parts of the
Actually.
sentence.
Oh,
And
I
so
love
she'll
that.
say, I actually am done. Or sometimes she'll say, I am done actually. Or she'll say, I am actually done. And I'm like, interesting. We're just throwing it in everything.
You can fit it in everything. It's every single part of the sentence. I think that's really, like, I'm just sitting here, like, kind of not I'm just kind of reflecting on today at the library when I almost didn't do that. Like, I almost didn't focus on my child's interests and was instead, like, and focused on, like, the educational level. And basically what happened was I gave each boy the chance to pick out 3 books. And
Right.
what inevitably happens is that they really like the giant books because that is what they see their dad read in textbooks. A lot of my books are kind of pretty thick. They're kind of in this like the bigger the better, more exciting situation. And so I always try to make it a rule of like, here's a new book you've never even heard of that you just like the style of. Here's your really, really big book. And here's a book that's actually probably more at your level.
Right.
Um, and me and my stepson had this like just a little like emotional tug of war moment where he was like, I was really surprised. And I said that. I was like, I'm very surprised that none of these books are part of the series that you've shown so much interest in, because he's got like 5 different series of books that he's really loving right now. And he's always been talking about them. And he picked 3 standalone novels that I have never heard of. I mean, one of them was written in 1997 and is about 2 girls who are best friends, and one moves really far away and they write letters to each other. And I'm
Hmm.
like, do you know what this book's about, or what's your criteria for choosing? Like, I was like, what are we seeing on this? Because it's a white cover of a book with a pen on it. That's it. So there was no flashy orange, because he got another book that was like, I could tell exactly why he liked this book. It had a giant 3 and a 9 on the front and a tree house. And like, he was in it, man. He was like, this is a shiny, shiny book. But and then of course, my youngest was like, I want this book because it's pink. And he picked out like a Junie B. Jones book that the cover is all pink. And he's like, yes, exactly. But I had to really stop myself from being like, okay, you have to put one of these books back and choose a book that I know you're actually going to like. And I kind of just had this little war with myself of like, that's not okay. Like, I can't do that, even though my instinct was to be like, education wise, you're going to probably be frustrated by these books because I know that you probably need something that's a little closer to your age range, a little bit like, I mean, these are like middle schooler books. And I really kind of had an
Right.
attitude with myself about
Well,
it. Like, I was like,
and
I need to stop doing this.
as the chauffeur, you don't want to hear, I need to go back to the library because I didn't get the book that I wanted.
Exactly. Well, and I just like I still don't know. But when I came up to my office, like to sit down and record this session, I told both boys, you can play a game, you can watch a movie, or you can read a book. And if you need any help, daddy's downstairs, I'm upstairs. I'd love it if you didn't come and find me. Like, there's another adult. Go find the other adult. Um,
Right.
and right as I was walking up the stairs, I realized he's sitting there with that letter book. I mean, just plain as day, just sounding the words out, getting through the first page. And I was just like, for whatever reason, this scratched his brain. Like, for whatever
Oh,
reason, this book scratched his brain. And I know nothing about the book. And I guess the reason it was coming from, again, like a place of anxiety, like you said earlier. Like, it was coming from a place of anxiety of like, what if he gets into this book and hates it and then he hates reading forever? Or what if we get into this book and like, I don't know, it full on bridge to Terabithia's him like they did to me. like um, like I was told that that was our father's like favorite childhood book, so I read Bridge to Terabithia and it murdered my soul.
oh no.
Like age 8. And
Well,
I just
I will
it's one of those
say
things.
that the Montessori method is very much so, it's not about you as a parent, it's about
Yes.
them. And I think that it it's definitely it's definitely something worth having in your belt if you like truly look into it.
Yeah, I think
Um,
so.
I don't know that it's worth dropping thousands of dollars on clear resin blocks or something like that.
Agreed.
But I will say that you can support independent play literally anywhere. And I say this as someone who just got back from 10 days in Italy and forgot to pack the toy bag.
I don't think that's fair. You told me that you packed it, you just left it.
I packed the bag. like the zipper pouch of toys,
which is kind of worse.
and I left it on the kitchen counter
You did all of
in
the
Germany.
prep work and none of the execution.
Not only that, I stole some of her favorites. Like I stole the girls, Elsa, and
Oh
Anna, the
no.
little
Elsa,
people.
Elsa, Nana.
Well, Elsa, Queen Elsa, and Anna. Okay,
Okay, nice.
they're different. But
They're very
like,
different.
I snuck them into the pouch because I was afraid that she would want to like carry them through the airport or whatever. So I snuck them into the pouch like 2 days before, while I was packing and
Oh
like all
wow.
this stuff. I mean, yeah, now she's really excited to see them because she hasn't seen them in 2 weeks. Um, but yeah,
They're brand new.
we get all the way to Italy, check into our first Airbnb, which was actually an agriturismo, not an Airbnb, but anyway, it's a whole thing. Um,
I don't know what that
but
means.
it's a farm that you stay on in Italy.
No.
You like go
Okay.
and stay. So we stayed in an orchard.
Okay.
Part of the story, relevant to the story. But yeah,
Talk
so
about Montessori.
an agriturismo is just like a co-opt like farm or orchard, family owned land where you can stay there like a bed and breakfast, but also
Oh,
like
cool.
part of the land. So you like eat farm to table, and that was really cool being an orchard, the whole thing. We get there, we don't have any toys.
Any. Like any.
Well, we had like a writing tablet because it was with the books. We
Okay.
had an iPad because we travel with a tablet for like us and for her occasionally. So we have like emergency things. And she had got a Happy Meal at the airport, so she had a volleyball.
Yeah, because yeah, that's something that's not American. So this Happy Meal, just as a small aside, the Happy Meal had beach toys in it, correct?
Yeah, yeah. On the island of Sardinia in Italy, the
So
McDonald's gave out deflated volleyballs, like full size, regulation size volleyballs, deflated, with the with the little piece to stick in there, like the needle to stick in there and blow it up. So you could use like a pump or you could use your mouth or whatever, accessible volleyball for you to play on the beach.
love that.
Amazing.
So
Amazing.
exciting.
So
They
anyway,
came
so like
came
we have
through
like
real hard.
and we're like, "Oh my gosh, we don't have any Hot Wheels cars. We don't have any of her like letter games. We don't have any matching stuff. We don't have any." Tell you what, these 10 days, and there were definitely a couple moments where I was like, "Wish we had the girls with us, or wish we had a Hot
Yeah.
Wheels car." We literally bought a Hot Wheels car in the airport on the way back because
Okay, good.
she saw them and she wanted one, and we were an hour into our 2-hour wait for our plane, and I was like, "Let's just buy one. Like, let's just buy a
Yes,
Hot Wheels car.
please.
How much
Just
can it
just
be?"
buy a car. They're like $1.
It was $4 because it's in an airport, but still.
Oh, okay.
Um,
Before a bougie Hot Wheels.
I turned it into a learning experience and gave her the exact change, and she checked out with the cashier herself. Um,
Oh, that's
it was
adorable.
it's so great. Except for when people try to speak Italian to her, she replies in German. So she she just knows it's not English. We're
Oh,
at the
that
point
was
now where she doesn't know she speaks German and English. She just knows she speaks English and not English.
yeah, and not English. Well, that's actually really funny because today at the library we had a small moment where I had to pull both boys aside because there was a mom who was speaking what appeared to be like Mandarin or like a tonal language in
Yeah,
like the Asian dialect. I won't guess what it was.
fascinating.
Um, super fascinating. But both boys immediately started babbling in Spanish because they wanted to join. And I
Yeah,
was like,
yeah.
first off, no. Second off, no. Let's
Yeah, I
just
mean, it's a
stop.
real thing. It's a real English and not English, like native language and not native language. Hey, I know some words. I can talk to you in this. Like that's
Exactly.
exactly the vibes. But I tell you what, like the my daughter did so well, and we had such a nice time. 10 days without any of her toys. And she would sit, I mean, she sat at the dinner table at restaurants, and the first thing she would do, she would climb up in her chair and she would take the condiment container or like the sugar
Yep.
container, dump it
Everyone's
out, mix
favorite.
them around, and then sort them by color
Yep. There you go. Montessori,
for
straight up.
like 30 minutes. She would, there were paper placemats everywhere instead of like cloth and placemats because it's beachy area, and so I guess they don't want sand everywhere and stuff. And so she
Valid.
would fold it or rip it or draw on it if we could find a pen. Like
Yeah.
she would take her
We
fork and poke
always
little bitty holes all the way around it, and I'm just like I just remember like looking at her and I'm like, I feel like this is so good for your brain right now.
Yeah, like you can see that, like, and it's not that they don't learn with toys, but it's one of those things where you get to see what your child does creatively. Because I'm sitting here thinking, like,
She made up
in the
songs.
same situation, in the same situation, one boy would have a lot of distress and want to get up and move around physically because that's kind of his reaction for entertaining himself. The other boy would have asked some sort of personnel for a pen and then never given the pen up and just draw on everything
Oh yeah.
because that's how we entertain ourselves. And so, like, it's so interesting that she kind of had this, like, I'm going to make patterns and sort things. And, like, you got to see this, like, creative side because, again, it comes down to, like, that child directed interest. And this is
Yeah.
fascinating. I didn't know I was a Montessori fan. Apparently I'm a Montessori fan now.
Yeah. I mean, I will lend you the book
You
if you want to read
converted
it.
me.
But I will now. We always need to touch on a bit of realism before we come in. Let me be perfectly clear. I said the words, "Put your shoes back on," approximately 1 million times on this trip in Italy because when your child is bored, they take their shoes off. That's what I learned.
Yep. That's
Um,
that's a thing. That one might be universal. That one might be
I might
universal.
I might never forget. I might never forget toys again just because every time I look at her shoes, I thought to myself, where are the toys? Where did I put
Where
them?
are they?
Where did I leave them? Why do we not have them? Why are we taking these shoes off all the time? We take the shoes off 17 times today. Where are the toys? What did I do with them? I unpacked all of our bags multiple times to make sure they weren't just like stuffed in some random zipper pocket. Nope, they weren't
Nope.
there.
Gone.
So I just want to put that moment of realism in there. Like we did not have a Montessori sugar packet sorting. Everything was perfect. I, at one point, told her that because she took her shoes off again one last time, after I told her multiple times that she could not, that she had lost the rights to her feet. And I carried her from the
Valid.
restaurant to the
I was
car,
about to
and
say,
she screamed in a foreign
yeah, because
country, "Put me down! I want to walk!" And I said, "You have lost your feet. Please come back and try again later. If you don't keep your shoes
funny
on,
is
you will lose your feet."
what's funny is I caught a couple months ago, I caught the older boy explaining to the younger boy that if you're bored, you can take off your socks and put them on your hands like puppets. And I was like, no, this is not an
Please
age
don't.
appropriate.
Please no.
This is
Please
not an age
no.
appropriate lesson. Do not teach your brother that. I was like, this is not
Please
funny.
go get a
Don't do it.
Sharpie and put the little dots on that part of your hand where you could make it talk. Like, come on, do something.
Let's
That's so funny.
let's learn hand signs to a song. Let's not take our socks off and put them on our hands.
We did learn a couple finger spiels,
Oh, that's fun.
like finger play, and so that was the. I mean, overall, it was a great trip of connection and wonder. And I might consider hiding the toys better next time, but I don't know that I will recommend forgetting the toys.
Yeah, when we're in a hotel, I always start with no toys and then I like bring out one at a time. And it's
Yeah,
like,
that's
"Hey
the
guys, look what
trickle.
I
The trickle effect is the way to
found."
do it. Trickle effect
Yeah.
is boss
But
mode.
it's always nice because when you get everybody does this. If you enter like a new location, the very first thing you do is run around and see everything you can see about it. And then you're like,
Mhm.
"Hey, look, the closet door slide, 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 slide." And look, they have those little door stoppers that make the doing noise. Like,
For my
like
daughter, it's to ask. For my daughter in Italy, it's to ask if the bidet is a sink yet. Is this one a
still
sink?
not. Still
Still
not.
not. That is still a bidet. Where's the
Oh,
sink? It's right there. Okay, just
it's
checking.
it's at her level. It's at her
Oh
level.
yeah,
That's very
oh yeah,
unfair.
and a lot of them look very sink-like. But she would run right to the bathroom and be like, "Look, Mama, a little sink. That one's a sink, right? No, that's still
Nope,
a bidet.
still not.
Do not
I
touch
love
it."
that.
But
Well,
anyway,
I am so grateful that you have apparently converted me into learning more about
you're gonna
Montessori
have to
because
dig
it's just
more into
not
this, huh?
something. Yeah, it's just not something I've ever really like stepped into because frankly, I just have lots of other books to read and just never really vibed with it, but I'm pretty excited to learn some more. So I appreciate that.
The
And you're a
Montessori
good
brain
mom.
tickle.
Even oh, you stuck. You good? You good?
Yeah. Yeah. The
You're a good mom
Montessori
even when you
brain
got
tickle.
hurt?
I was going to say that it's very Montessori that I have now led you down this path for you to explore on your own.
Did. You figured out my interests and you allowed me to be self-directed as I explored something new.
May
Love
you continue
it.
to maintain your independence on this journey. You're a good mom.
I'll talk to you later.